Permanent Secretary, for speaking on behalf of the co-hosting and co-convening countries. We will have now a session in which we will hear from various stakeholders, and the title of the session is Guiding Refugee Responses in a Changing World. We have 6 speakers. If I may ask each one of them to try to respect the 5 minutes limit, because we are running a little bit late, but we'll catch up if you are good timekeepers. So without further ado, let me call on the first speaker of this session, delivering the Global Refugee Statement, Ms. Nour Jarrouj, part of the UNHCR Advisory Board. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Grandi. Excellencies, colleagues, and fellow refugees. Around the world, families are running out of places to go. The scale of global displacement remains extremely high, with 117.3 million people forced to flee. Not because they chose to move, but because staying meant persecution, violence, or the collapse of their basic rights and safety. Behind every statistic is a person who once had a home, a community, and a future rooted in the ordinary rhythms of life. This reality reminds us that the systems designed to protect people in times of crisis are under severe strain. Forcibly displaced and stateless people are navigating overlapping emergencies. Conflict that show no sign of resolution, peace processes that stall, and protracted crises that hold entire generations in limbo. Host countries, most of them low and middle income states, continue to show remarkable generosity, even as global support remains uneven and unpredictable. 10 countries alone hosted more than half of the world's refugees in 2024. These pressures demand a renewed commitment to the principles that underpin international protection. Yet, throughout these challenges, refugees continue to rebuild their lives, contribute to economies, strengthen communities, and care for one another. But resilience alone cannot be the foundation of international policy. Refugees are not bystanders. We are actors, leaders, organizers, and experts in our own right. Across the world, refugee-led organizations are delivering solutions every day, from Cox's Bazar to Lebanon to Colombia to Kenya and Nigeria. They respond first and stay longest. They also bring technical expertise grounded in lived experience to policy-making spaces. Refugees across generations, genders, and identities are leading responses within their communities, but their leadership remains under-recognized and underfunded. Consultation without decision-making power is not meaningful participation. Tokenism wastes our expertise. Excluding refugees from policy design undermines the effectiveness of the entire system. Localization efforts must shift power rather than responsibility, prioritizing quality funding for organizations led by displaced and stateless persons, and ensuring that international organizations complement rather than overshadow this leadership. If we want better and more effective outcomes, refugees must be partners, not afterthoughts. Inclusion must also reflect the diversity of refugee experiences. Women and girls face heightened risks of violence and exclusion. LGBTQI+ refugees confront discrimination and insecurity. Refugees with disabilities struggle to access services and information. Youth face barriers that limit their leadership and economic opportunities. The youngest refugees' children still lack access to vital early childhood services like early learning and child protection, which minimizes their long life development. Economic inclusion and the right to work, especially for women, young people and caregivers, must be part of any credible protection system. Policies that ignore these realities deepen inequality. Protection must respond to the needs of all refugees, not only for the ones that are most visible or easy to access. The global funding crisis is magnifying these inequalities as essential services shrink. Therefore, including forcibly displaced people in resource allocation decisions ensures that they align with the needs and priorities of affected communities. Durable solutions also remain central to any credible refugee response, but for many, they remain more theoretical than real. Voluntary return is possible only when conditions allow for safety and dignity. Local integration requires consistent policies and long-term support for both refugees and host communities. Resettlement, that once was a powerful expression of global solidarity, remains far below global needs. In the first half of 2025, only 28,700 refugees were able to access resettlement or sponsorship pathways across 18 different countries, almost 3 times fewer than in the same period in 2024. Expanding safe pathways, strengthening conditions for sustainable return, and enabling genuine inclusion in countries of asylum must be approached with realism, rights, and refugee agency at the center. Climate change is compounding displacement, intensifying fragility, and placing additional pressures on communities already living through crisis. Strengthening the HDP nexus, linking humanitarian, development, and peace-building efforts, and supporting frontline states ensure responses are more inclusive, sustainable, and shaped by the needs of the most affected. At the heart of our collective responsibility lies the protection regime itself. The right to seek asylum is under growing pressure, and deterrence-based approaches continue to spread. These practices do not reduce displacement, they increase our suffering and weaken the global framework that has safeguarded millions. Upholding the 1951 Refugee Convention and the principle of non-refoulement must remain a non-negotiable. A credible protection system requires fair asylum procedures, access to rights, and humane reception conditions. Millions of refugees and stateless people still lack documentation and legal identity, without which rights, safety, and solutions remain out of reach. This Global Refugee Forum Progress Review also marks the final global gathering under the leadership of High Commissioner Filippo Grandi. Over the past decade, his tenure has helped elevate meaningful refugee participation within global discussions. This progress must not only be preserved, but deepened, ensuring more spaces to influence policy and programming are accessible to refugee experts and recognizing them as key contributors for more effective solutions. The next High Commissioner must defend the Refugee Convention unequivocally, confront policies that erode protection norms, and champion meaningful refugee participation at all levels of UNHCR's governance and at regional and country policy levels. They must work with the states to uphold international law, resist externalization practices, and ensure that protection is never treated as negotiable. The world has made us many promises. What is needed now is measurable action, sustained investment, and political courage. Refugees do not seek affirmation. We seek follow-through, transparency, and accountability. What we ask is simple. Match our courage with action, our expertise with partnership, and our commitment with accountability. The future of international protection depends on what the world chooses now: retreat or responsibility, symbolism or substance, managed decline or collective renewal. The system must choose justice now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nour Jarrouj. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Naoki